How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today on Daf Kuf Tes Zayin, Daf 116 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends. I think that this daf isn't that hard. Okay, let's see. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long because yesterday was a doozy. Oh, by the way, Babylon. By the time I paused the video, the Babylon is done. I lost the Babylon. All right. Im Omar lo atzilas shelcha v'chuli. So this was talking about Honeydew and Weinstein. So Honeydew's got his jug of honey, and Weinstein's got his jug of wine. Honeydew's honey thing cracks. Weinstein's like, yo, bro, I will spill out my wine and we'll put your honey in my wine thing. So we say, where am I? So if Weinstein says, look, I'll be willing to dump out my wine in order to save your honey, but I just want you to pay me back for my wine though, because obviously I'm basically losing my wine. So then Honeydew needs to pay Weinstein the value of his wine. But why does Honeydew need to pay Weinstein the value of his wine? V'neimale, let Honeydew say to Weinstein, Mishate ani b'cho. I was just kidding. I didn't really mean that I was gonna pay you for your wine. You really thought I meant that? Nah, it was just a joke, I'll pay for your wine. Just kidding. Milotanics, after all, don't we learn in a brayse? If you have a prisoner who's running away from prison, and there was a ferry before, right? He had to cross a river, and there was a ferry over there, and he says, quick, just take this dinar and take me across the river on your ferry. Now, apparently, a dinar is quite an absorbent sum for a ferry ride. I don't know how much a ferry ride should cost. What, like a pruta? I don't know. Oh gosh, I know. I'm not getting into prutas and dinars and zuzas and sellas and blah 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 blah. Nope, but we're gonna go weiter. But apparently, a dinar is too much money for a ferry ride. All right. Ein lo ela scharo. So the prisoner does not need to pay the ferry guy the full dinar. He could just pay him kind of his fee. His dag nabbit, Babylon. Right, so ein lo ela scharo. So the ferry guy just gets his regular, his regular kind of fee. Alma le mishat ani b'cho. So we see that the prisoner can say, psych, just kidding. So let Honeydew say to Weinstein, just kidding, haha. I didn't really mean it. Gotcha. So says the Gemara, no, that's not really true. Halodami ella l'seifa. Really, the case of Honeydew and Weinstein is more analogous to the seifa. V'im omar lo tol dinar ze bischarcha v'avireni. That if the prisoner says to the ferry guy, take this dinar as your payment. Dag nabbit, what's with all this yawning? Oh my gosh, you would think that I'm tired or something, which I am. But not tired that, right? We know already at Babylon Talmud, there's different levels of tired. There's the short-term memory loss tired, which is a showstopper. Then there's I'm just tired and yawning all the time. That's the kind of tired that I am right now. If the prisoner fellow, should we give prisoner fellow a name? Honestly, prisoner fellow is a good name. Alright? If prisoner fellow says to ferry guy, these are great names. Honeydew, Weinstein, prisoner fellow, and ferry guy. Chevre, I feel like a great adventure is developing. So if prisoner fellow says to ferry guy, take this dinar as your reward and take me across the river. No sin lo scharu mishalim. Well, then a prisoner fellow needs to pay a ferry guy in full. Mashna reisha, mashna seifa. What's the difference between the reisha and the seifa? How come in the first case, prisoner fellow just needs to pay ferry guy his regular fare, whereas in the second case we say prisoner fellow needs to pay ferry guy the full dinar that he promised? Well, the difference is that in the second scenario, ferry guy is not just a ferry guy. He's not sitting around there waiting. He's not like a ferry service that he just takes people across the river. No, he's actually a fisherman. And normally, when in this case, he would be fishing and making and catching fish to sell. But he's not doing that now because he's acting as a ferryist, a ferry guy, right? Who takes people across the river. So therefore, he's foregoing any profits that he would have got from his fishing. So therefore, a prisoner fellow needs to pay him for the full dinar, right? Because otherwise he would have been out fishing. Whereas in the ratio, it's talking about where he wasn't necessarily, he's not losing anything. He's, I guess, a ferry guy, and this is his, and he wasn't necessarily going to be losing out on like his fishing or whatever. So therefore, here as well with Weinstein and Honeydew, Weinstein is spilling out his wine, right? He's obviously taking a loss. And because he's taking a loss, so if Honeydew says that he's going to pay Weinstein for his wine, so he has to pay Weinstein for his wine. Shotaf nor chamere v'chomer chavere shelo yofemone v'chulei. So if, I know it's not very nice to yawn. I should probably really pause, but there's just so much yawning. So, if you have Ruvain and Shimon, Ruvain's donkey is $100, Shimon's donkey is $200. They both are drowning in the river. So Ruvain says to Shimon, "Hey Shimon, I understand that your donkey is more expensive than mine. It's $200 versus mine, which is $100. I'm willing, I'm going to save your donkey. If we can only save one, I'll save your donkey." So we say, if he just goes and saves Shimon's donkey, so Shimon just needs to pay him for his efforts. But if he says to Shimon, "Look, I'll save your donkey, but you need to, but only under the condition that you at least reimburse me for my donkey that I'm foregoing, $100. So if they make that deal, so then Shimon needs to pay. So utzricha, and we need both cases. We need both the case of the wine and the honey, as well as the two donkeys. Diashmuinon kamaisa. If we would only have the case of the wine and the honey, ha samudichi peresh. So say, okay, in that case, when Weinstein says to Honeydew, "Look, I'll be willing to spill out my wine, but I need you to repay me for it." So in that case, Weinstein is entitled to get repaid for his wine. So, where am I? So Hasam du chiparish hu de chiparish yoiv le dmei kule. So Honeydew gives Weinstein all of the value of his wine. Mishun dibiyadayim ka posid, because Weinstein is poshit taking his wine and spilling it out on the floor in order to accommodate Honeydew's honey. Aval hacha de memele, but in the case of the two donkeys, Reuven is not killing his donkey, he's just not saving it, and memele is going to get lost. So Nema, maybe I'll say, Ein lo elascharo, even if Reuven says, "I will save your donkey, but you need to pay me for my donkey." Maybe in that case, since it's just kind of happening on its own, that because it's not getting saved, it's dying on its own. So so maybe Shimon would not need to pay Reuven even when they have that stipulation. V'ashminon seifa, and we would only have the case of the donkeys. Hacha hu debistome ein lo elaschar. I would say, okay, specifically in the case of the two donkeys, when there is no specific speculation, speculation, when there's no no, I don't think speculation is the right word. When there's no specific, I don't know, agreement, I don't know the word I'm thinking of. When there's no specific agreement, so in that case, by the donkeys, then that is where Shimon just gets paid for his toil. Aval scharo, where am I? El scharo mishum demimele, because it happens on its own, because the donkey kind of just dies on its own. Haval hasam debiyadayim, but in the case of Honeydew and Weinstein, where Weinstein's mom is spilling out his water, his wine, so ema afilu bistama, even by default, yoev le dmei kula. Honeydew should have to pay Weinstein for spilling out his wine. Tzricha, so therefore we have both cases to say that, look, when they stipulate, I think stipulate is the word I was thinking of. So when there's a stipulation, so in both cases, by the wine and the honey as well as by the two donkeys, if there's a stipulation that I will save your thing if you pay me for my loss, so then, he gets paid for his loss. But if there's no stipulation, so then he's just paid for his toil. But that's it. Okay, 1 second. Babuyod. Bo mine Rav Kahane me Rav. So Rav Kahane asked a kasha from Rav. Yored lahatzil ve'ola shalom me'elav mao. You hear the kasha? It's a gevaldige kasha. The gevaldige kasha is, so Reuven says to Shimon, look, I understand that your donkey is the more expensive one. Your donkey is $200, mine is $100. I, Reuven, am willing to jump out into the river to save your donkey, and I'll forget about my donkey, and I'll save yours so long as, you'll pay me back for my donkey that I'm ignoring and leaving in God's hands. And Shimon says, fine, yeah, save my donkey, and I will pay you $100 for your donkey. So Beseder. So Reuven goes and he saves Shimon's donkey. Turns out, Reuven's donkey then washed ashore, and it was saved, and it's fine. So does Shimon still need to pay Reuven $100? He admitted to pay. He committed to paying Reuven $100, but then again, he was paying $100 because the assumption was Reuven's going to lose his donkey. Turned out that he didn't lose his donkey. So is Shimon still committed to having to pay the $100? It's the Kavaldiga Kasha, right? Of course. So says the Gemara again, stuff from the beginning. Ba'amine, Rav Kahana Mirav, Rav Kahana Asrab, your lahatzil, if Reuven goes to save Shimon's donkey, va'ala shalo me'elav, and while that's going on, it turns out that actually Reuven's donkey ends up surviving. Mau. Amalei, so Rav responds to Rav Kahana, Mishmaye rechimu ole. The Eibishter had mercy on him. Kilu, he wins. Shimon committed to paying him $100, so he gets $100 from Shimon. And it turns out that his donkey ended up surviving, so he gets to keep, of course, his donkey, and he gets to keep his donkey, and Shimon still has to live up to his commitment of paying $100 to Reuven. Ki ho, the Rav Safra havaka ozu b'shayarta. It's like the Maaseh with Rav Safra, that he was traveling in a caravan with a bunch of donkey people. Lavinu hahu ari, and a certain lion escorted them. Okay, they're traveling, and some lion found them, and instead of eating them, the lion actually escorted them and kept them safe, protected them. Kolela kashadar lei. And every night for dinner they would give to the lion one of their donkeys. Every night a different member of the caravan would offer their donkey to the lion for supper. And he would eat the donkey for supper. Oof, that must have been what's the word I'm thinking of? What's the word I'm thinking of? That must have been graphic. Oh my gosh. Just give that donkey to that lion. Woo! So Chama dechad minayu v'ka ochil, and the lion would eat it. Kimot zimne to Rav Safra, and sure enough, eventually it was Rav Safra's turn to offer his donkey. Shoder lechamre v'lo achle. So he offered his donkey to the lion, and sure enough, the lion wasn't hungry, did not eat the donkey. Kodem Rav Safra v'zochabe, and Rav Safra then quickly took the donkey back so that he can get it back. Amalei Rav Achmi difti Ravina, says Rav Achmi difti to Ravina, lama le lemizake be. Why did Rav Safra have to quickly take back the donkey before anybody else did? Nehidachi afkere adaita de arye afkere, because granted, when he was mafkir his donkey, but he was mafkir his donkey so that the lion can consume it. But he didn't make it hefker to everybody else. So why did he have to quickly take it back before anybody else could? So Ravina responds to Rav Achmi Difti that Rav Safra, he was just he wanted to quickly take it back so that nobody else should say, wait, it's mine, whatever. So but yeah, the truth is he didn't need to do that. That by default, right? That look, he offered his donkey to the lion. The lion wasn't hungry. Okay, zachita. Safra, he gets his donkey back. Okay, they had Rachmanas on him. Ba'amine, right, meaning Hashem and Rachmanas on him. Ba'amine Rav may Rebbe. Rav asks a kasha from Rebbe or lahatzil v'lohitzil mahu. That's an interesting question. What if Ruvain says, hey Shimon, I will go and save your donkey because it's the more expensive one, but I need you to pay me for my donkey that I'm going to basically, leave to drown. So Ba'amine Rav Mirebi Yored Lahatzav Lohitza, but what if Ruvain did not succeed? Kilu, Ruvain said, Shimon, I will save your donkey, pay me $100. He goes to save a donkey, he didn't succeed. Shimon's donkey did not survive. Can Ruvain still say, okay, Shimon, but still, I know I didn't manage to save your donkey, but you committed to pay me for my donkey. So Omar lo vizo sheila. So Rebbe responds to Rav and says, it's a good kasha. Ein lo elaschar, but the answer is, no, Ruvain can get paid for his toil, but he's not going to get paid for, his $100 for his donkey. Eisved, we have a kasha. Rav has a kasha to Rebbe. Hasoches hapoil lehavi krub v'dur maskinin lechole. Somebody who appoints a worker to go and bring cabbage and what was dur maskinin again? Oh, prunes to a sick fellow. And okay, so the worker goes and he goes to deliver these items. Turns out that the chole passed away, Oshe Hivri, or alternatively healed. Was cured. Meaning, either way, the chole didn't need this delivery anymore. So no sin lo schar mishalim, the delivery person still deserves to get paid in full. So we see that even when it doesn't work out, you still deserve to get paid. Amalei Rebbe responds, meh. Mi dami, are those two scenarios really similar? In the scenario of the sick person, look, a messenger was sent to deliver items to the sick person. Turns out he's not sick anymore. Look, the messenger did what he was supposed to do. He took the items to the place where he was supposed to go. He did the instructions to the T, so he deserves to get paid. But in our case, Reuven said, "I'm going to save your donkey." He didn't save the donkey, so he didn't do what he said he was going to do. So therefore, in that case, he doesn't get paid the value of his donkey. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught shayorish hoysuma leches bamidbar. All right, so you have a caravan. They were walking. They were traveling in the desert. And comes a bunch of shmendriks, and they are going to cause trouble to this caravan. And they managed to negotiate a price and say, Shmendriks, I want you to get lost. How much do we need to pay you to get lost? And they say, I'll give you a good price. And okay, they negotiate. Okay, so now they paid whatever it is. So now all the people in the caravan need to contribute to this ransom money, right? So mechajven lefi moment and mechajven lefi nefashos. So they don't divide everything up equally. They divide it up based on how much money you have on you, right? If you have more money on you, so you contribute more. If you have less money on you, you contribute less, right? It's not that they don't just divide it up equally. But if they had hired a guide to guide them and to make sure and to make sure that there's a smooth journey, so that so mechaj, I think that we're talking about so to pay for the guide. So mechajvin af lefi nefashis. So then that we take into account not just how much you can pay, how much money you have with you, but also just divide up by how many people, because this guide is also going to save your life potentially. So therefore, my understanding is that half the payment we just divide equally among the people, because it goes based on person, that each person is going to save everybody's life. So everybody's life is equal. So you divide, so everybody contributes equally in that respect. But in terms of the payment for the guide, so that my understanding would be based on the half of the payment would be based on how much money you have with you. And they should not change from the minig of the donkey drivers. Okay, whatever the donkey drivers usually do in terms of payment for these things, so that's what you do. Okay, the donkey drivers can make a condition among themselves, among the other donkey drivers. That if anybody loses their donkey, so they will replace the donkey. Okay, so it sounds like, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of caravan and there's a bunch of donkey drivers, and the donkey drivers make up that, look, if anybody's donkey, if anybody loses their donkey, so we will all chip in to replace it. So b'chusya ein mamidin, shelo b'chusya mamidin lo. So if if somebody lost their donkey because they were irresponsible, so then the group doesn't need to replace his donkey. But if he was responsible and it got lost, so then they will replace the donkey. Vim Omar Tnuli Vani Eshmer. Now, if the driver says, "How about this? Instead of giving me a new donkey, why don't you give me money and I'll buy a new donkey?" Ain't Shomalo. We don't listen to just give him cash. No way. We give him a new donkey. Pshita. That's obvious. Of course, don't just give him cash. So Lotzricha, we needed to Isle Chamra Achrina. Well, he has another donkey in the group, right? So there's a caravan. This particular person has two donkeys. One of them gets lost, and he says, "Look, instead of replacing my donkey, just give me money." No, we don't just give him the money, even though he still has a donkey there. And the point is, right, meaning they're all kind of coming together. The whole point is that they're going to be protecting each other's donkeys, right? They're all kind of coming together, and they have this kind of pact that they're all going to, if somebody's donkey gets lost, so we'll replace it, and that way, everyone's going to guard each other's donkeys, right? Because everybody's got a donkey there. Everybody, so they kind of take shifts guarding them, but it's in everybody's interest to make sure that the donkeys remain safe. So if somebody loses their donkeys, they're going to replace it so that you still have kind of skin in the game. So we're saying in this scenario, this guy whose donkey got lost, he also had another donkey. So therefore, Ma'adatema may have thought, Haka mintar le, so he's still going to contribute to the protection, because he still has to, make sure that his other donkey stays safe. So maybe he should be able to receive money. Kamash Malon, shining that it's different, the level of commitment to guarding the donkeys when you only have one donkey in the bunch versus when you have two donkeys in the bunch. So therefore, even though he still would have one donkey in the bunch, they still want to, don't just give money for a donkey. If one of his donkeys gets lost, replace it with a new donkey so that he still has two donkeys in the bunch, so that he will be even more committed to their safety. Ta Shma. No. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Svina shoysam alechas bayom. Okay, there was a boat, and the boat was boating on the sea. It was traveling on the sea, sailing on the sea. Omad oleh nachshol, and then a gale rose up. I don't know what a gale is. Litova, and this gale was going to sink the ship. Ve'kilu mimaso'a. So what they started to do was they started to throw items overboard. So mechajven lefi masoi ve'mechajven lefi mammon. So after everybody's saved, and they say, okay, who threw out what? So we we figure out, I guess, what, for like repaying people, I guess, based on the weight that they threw overboard, not necessarily based on the value, right? So if two people threw off the same thing, right? Threw off something, right? Two people threw off respectively something that was the same weight. One of them was gold, one of them was silver. It makes no difference. It goes based on weight, not based on value. But they should follow the custom of the seafarers, of the boating people, of the captains. And also the boat people can, the sailors can make conditions that if anybody loses their boat, so then the group will replace the boat. Avdalo bechusya ein ma'amidin, if he was irresponsible, so then they do not replace the boat. Shelo bechusya ma'amidin lo, but if he was responsible and the boat got lost or ruined or destroyed or broken, so they will replace the boat. If his boat veered off to the places that the boats don't go, ein ma'amidin, so then they're not going to replace the boat because he was irresponsible. Pshita, that's obvious. He went somewhere where he shouldn't. Lo tzricha de benisin merachke chad ashlo v'tishrei merachke trei ashle. Well, it's talking about a scenario where in Nisan, when the tide is higher, so then the boats only go like one rope length out. But in Tishrei, when the tide is lower, so then the boats would go 2 rope lengths out. Nisan l'makom Tishrei, and this fellow during Nisan, when the tides were higher, he went 2 rope lengths out. So ma'odetema dav sheinokid va'ozil kamash malon. I may have thought to say, well, he didn't really do anything wrong. He just went where he was accustomed to go during Tishrei. So maybe he should be able to get a boat replacement. So we say, no, he went to the wrong place. He doesn't get a boat replacement. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Shayar sha'isa maleches bamidbar. There was a caravan that they were caravanning away in the desert. V'amad gayis v'tarfa, and then a bunch of shtunks, shmendriks came by, and they were giving them a hard time, and part of the discussion was, give me all your money. V'amad echad me'em v'hitzil, and one brave soul stood up, and he saved the group. Hitzil la'emtza, so he's got to divide up the spoils among everybody. He divided it for the people. But if he says, people, I'm saving it for myself and I'm keeping all the loot, well, he keeps all the loot. Now what's the scenario? Well, if any of them could have saved it, and he's not really particularly unique, well then afilu seifa nami le'emtza. Well then even when he says, I'm going to save it for myself, he should have to divide it up among all the people, because anybody could have saved it. He didn't do anything special there. He just did it first, or stole it, stole the opportunity, or whatever it is. Stole the show. And if none of them were able to save it, and only he could, well then, afilu reisha nami la'atzmo. Well then, even if he didn't specify anything, you should be able to keep all of it, because it's not like they would have saved it anyways. So, interesting. So it says, here we're talking about partners. So when you have a partnership, so by default, everything belongs to the partnership. So therefore, even if this guy is a hero and he's doing what nobody else there could have done, and he saves it, but he saved it for the partnership. So therefore, they divide it up equally. And this is, but what we're saying here though is the concept of a partner can just decide that he's going to dissolve the partnership at any point. And therefore, essentially what's happening is the Shmendriks came to take all their stuff, and this hero went and shooed them away and saved all the stuff. So what he could do is he could dissolve the partnership so that he could keep all of it for himself. Because if he saves it, if he saves it, by default it will be divided up by all the partners. But if he dissolves the partnership, well, then he can keep all the loot for himself, because otherwise it was going to get lost, and he saved it. Omar Polig, if he says, look, I'm keeping it for myself, so then he dissolves the partnership and he keeps it for himself. Lo Omar, lo Polig. But if he didn't say that, so then by default it's going to be divided among all the partners. Rava Omar says, Rava Acha b'payalin oskinon. Here we're talking about workers, right? The hero was a worker, was an employee. So by default, whatever he saves would go to the employer. But he can quit at any point. So uchrav, and it's like Rav Amarav Poyel Yochel Lachzor Bo Afilu b'Chatzi Hayom. A worker can even quit in the middle of the day. Can quit whenever he wants. V'chamad lo Hoder Bey Kibrshuse de Balabayis Domi. And as long as he hasn't quit, so then it belongs to the Balabais, to the employer. So therefore, if he says that I'm doing it for myself, so he's betzim quitting and he's keeping it for himself. If he doesn't say that, well then he's taking, he's saving it for the employer. And the Gemara says, I don't exactly understand like how this fits into the flow, but the Gemara says, but by default, the reason why if he saves it, it goes to the employer is not because the employer owns him, because he owns himself, because right, the Pasuk says, "Ki li bnei Yisrael avodim, v'lo avodim la'avodim," that the bnei Yisrael are avodim to me, but not to other people. Okay, and that's why I guess when he decides that he's quitting, it could goes to him because he never was actually like an eved or something. Okay. Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi So Rav Ashi says that we're talking about a scenario when, look, the hero, anybody there could have saved it, but it would not have been easy. You would have had to earn it. And the hero goes and he saves it. So in that case, Kila, we had asked earlier, I don't understand. If he's the only one who can save it, then by default it should go to him. Why should anybody else have to, right? Why should anybody else be able to partake? And if anybody could have done it, so then even if he jumps the gun, anybody could have done it. In any event, they should be able to divide it among themselves. Here it's talking about, says Rav Ashi, where anybody maybe could have done it, but it wouldn't have been so easy. So in this case, look, if he says, I'm doing it, and nobody else takes initiative, only he does, and he says, I'm keeping it, so then he keeps it. But if he doesn't say that, so then technically, since anybody else can have done it, so then they could have done it, so then they divide it up amongst the people. That was the Kuf Tes Zayin of Masechta BavaKama. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.